Okay, she got to change the background for me.
There we go. So if you volunteer for something, we got it on record here. Not that there's a whole lot to volunteer for right now these days, huh? All right. Well, it is a little after 7. I don't see anybody new coming on. And so let's go ahead and get started. Would like to thank everybody for joining us for the, what is this, April 2021 member meeting of the Delta Club. I guess now we are officially 1 year of doing this online. So the 2 week to straighten out the curve is going on, but I think we all understand what's going on and what we need to do. And like I said in the president's corner, you know, we're watching it to see when we can start. I've actually had a couple of people ask me when we think we're going to start doing the live meetings, but a lot of that's just going to depend on you know, how things go. It's changing back and forth a whole lot these days, and we all need to be careful of what's going on. Let's see what I guess before we forget, Ham, is there anybody that has a motion for the treasurer's report and the minutes?
I make a motion that we accept the treasurer's report and the minutes as published in Sparks.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anybody opposed?
Feels normal again.
There we go. I know it. Well, no, I was going to tell on him and say that he forgot to join the meeting last month, but I won't embarrass him by saying that. Oh gosh, I just did. Oh no. But no, it is good to have him and everybody back that's with us. We've got a few new people. We got who was it? Park Dodge that he said he didn't know if he was supposed to be here or not, but you know, if you are new, yes, you're supposed to be here. If you haven't joined us before, we welcome you and glad that you found us and you joined us. All right. Does anybody have any announcements? I see John's usually pretty good for what's going on. I'll give you a free plug for Aries or whatever.
All right. Well, yeah, Shelby County Aries, we have our meeting 2 weeks from tonight. We'll be sending out a Zoom link about it. We will probably be going over some storm spotter Skywarn information. We had our Skywarn training last month, and hopefully everybody did at least the basic and also did advanced. They also did a class on organizing spotters, and that was kind of where I was going to take the meeting so that we could talk about different ways that we could become more organized and effective as a group should the need arise if we have severe weather in the area. They also put on a really good radar interpretation class. So it's my understanding those will be available on YouTube at some point. So when I find those links, I'll definitely share them with everybody because some really good training there in case you missed it. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Barry, do you have something today?
I always have something.
Okay. Well, I'm saying that because he's laughing because he sent me a text saying he's got an update. So yeah.
For a lot of people probably didn't even notice, but Methodist North, the repeater was down for a little while, and the other day, and also the APRS digipeater was down also. Both of them due to storms that we've been having. One of them just kind of flew apart. We were able to find all the pieces and put it back together. We found one piece on another building,
Wow.
well, of the hospital, but it was we had to search around to get a maintenance man to search around to figure out how to get to it. We could see it, but couldn't get it.
Oh, okay.
The other is the antenna for the 2-meter Methodist North. I have some pictures I will show you that show you what the result of direct lightning hits do. That one was blown to pieces. And Rick Tillman.
Oh,
and,
here, you're gonna let me set it up where you can share. If you said you
Okay.
gonna share now or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, I got it. You should be able to share now.
All right. Let's see here. Okay. That is what the antenna looked like when we saw it. And
We're not
this,
seeing it. We're not
No,
seeing it.
you haven't shared it yet.
well, I did.
So you should be allowed to.
Hang on.
All right.
When the
I always see is the telescope you spy on your neighbor with.
shoot. Select turn on nearby. That's nearby sharing.
Hit screen share and then click on
I did.
the picture.
Hang on a second. Let me, reduce the size of this thing. All right, that is share screen. Now I gotta find what I want to share. Oh, there it is.
There we go. Looks
Okay.
like it's getting somewhere. Okay.
All right, can you see that antenna or what's
Well,
left of it?
we can see all 4 screenshots. So you maybe double click on which one you're wanting to show us.
I did.
All right. It's not.
Hold on.
Double click.
I think you shared just the Explorer window.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think you shared your picture program.
Dadgummit.
That's all right. We got time.
Let me stop share for just a second. Get back over here. And y'all can't see that, huh?
No.
While Barry finds that, just a reminder, if you'll make sure your call sign is in your name on here for our record keeping, please. And thank you.
Oh, come on.
And I'll throw in a reminder of the junk in the trunk 2 weeks from Saturday on the 1st.
Okay. That's at it's at the church we normally meet at, Ellendale Church. Yeah. All right.
All right.
What time is it? What time is the junk in the trunk?
9 to 1.
9 to 1. Okay, thank
May
you.
1st. Mr. Lowenthal set that up for us, and I think the 9 o'clock is better than 8 o'clock. It did good.
All right. Well, speaking of,
I'm down to seeing just you, Steve.
huh?
Said I'm down to just seeing you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got everybody back at least.
All right.
We'll go back to share. Can you see that at all?
No, we're not seeing any. We're just. I'm just seeing who's on the meeting.
All right. Well, I was trying to put them in the pictures into Sparks. Maybe I can put it in there for next week, but apologize for that.
That's okay. That's okay. Ah, we're doing something here. Something just.
Yeah, you got something coming up.
All right, you see that?
Yeah.
photo
I
with
see
the-
that. I saw the mouse
I'm
move.
sorry, Barry.
One person, please.
Yeah, I forgot to put it in Sparks. I'm sorry about that. We
Okay.
can include it in next month if you want to.
There we go.
There you
There we
go.
go. Yeah.
Okay. Good God. I don't even know what it did. All right. Well, anyway, so you can see this antenna?
Yes.
Okay. That's the remainder. This from this point up is supposed to be about 17 feet.
Whoa.
And from the top, and it blew the whole thing down. There's the element inside from inside. It's just like laying across. And believe it or not, this was on a Wednesday when I went out there, and this was after Joe had actually made a transmission on it, and everybody heard it, including me. When I saw this, I recognized it. Oh, there's no way. But anyway, let's see if I can get to the next one now. That may be a chore.
Well, all right. Go where your pointer is. Just keep going over to the right, and it should give you. Should keep going. No.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it should have been a little. There you go. There you go. Keep going. Keep going. There's a little arrow there on the edge of on the right edge.
I'm over in my other screen. Right
Okay.
now.
See if you can just use the arrow key on your keyboard.
Okay, I can do that.
Or
Hey, you just smart me. All right, that's a close-up look of some of
Wow.
it. And you can see all the char on it, on the end of it.
What antenna is this?
This was the 3.6 repeater, 2 meter on Methodist. And there's another shot of it at the base after we got the base down.
That's Methodist North, right?
Yes, Methodist North.
Looks like it discharged a passing cloud.
Well, it found it. And there's pretty much most of the pieces, except for the little shards that are all over the place on the roofs. That's kind of, Rick just kind of scattered it all out there and took a good picture of it. So these photos are courtesy of Mr. Rick Tillman, which I appreciate his help. And I believe that's all. Yeah, that's all I've got. So
What kind of antenna was that, Barry?
Rick, do you know?
One that worked.
I think it was a Diamond 510.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Could be a Comet GP9.
well,
We
I
didn't buy comments.
You didn't? Okay.
also, I'm not sure this was a dual band. So GP9 is a dual band.
Right.
Got a Hustler G6 now.
Yeah,
One more metal.
that's right. We just happened to have one that we were able to piece together from a previous problem, and it's a pretty big antenna, and it's working quite well. Okay, that's it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you got it.
Thanks again to you and Rick for helping us out. So, all right, Joe, you're usually good for some announcements. What you got today?
We had on the 5th of April, we had a test session for the tech class. We had 12 students take their test, and 12 got their license. 2 of them, no, 3 of them got general, and 1 of them who's on the call tonight, Park, got his tech general and extra.
Hey.
And then, we
And was
previously
upset
had,
that he missed 2.
and then previously in March, we had 1 lady who ran the table also and got tech general and extra. So we had 13 people from the class out of 18 that finished, got their license from testing. Several others will be testing later on. We also had 3 other people that tested. 2 of them from CBU got their technician. So that got all 9 that were in the CBU class got their license. And then Bob White's grandson, AI4GI's grandson, got his technician license. So no, we came away with a license for everybody that night.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
And Richard, one of the students, was one of your former workers. Carlin, Carlyn. I'm trying to think what her last name is, but anyway, she was one of the ones that got technician.
Well, great.
Or no, she didn't. She's having to study further.
Oh.
She will. I think she will later on.
Okay. All right.
But the next class will probably be a tech class starting in late June or early July. Haven't set a date. Probably won't until May for it.
Okay. Taking a little break for a while, huh?
Yep, that's what I normally do.
Good.
I tell you, the classes are at least 6 months worth of work when you figure the prep for it, getting the instructors, doing the classes, and then afterwards doing the report on the class and doing the testing and everything. Today I just finished cleaning the test booklets up since it was a Laurel test. I had to look at them to make sure they were clean and got answer sheets back in them. So it definitely takes quite a bit of time doing the classes and getting them tested.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate it. Anything else, Joe? Or
Huntsville Hamfest.
I was going to say, yeah, Huntsville. We're still making. We're still planning on that. And if anybody's interested, definitely let Joe know.
We would like to get some names of people that are interested in going. Let's see, I've got 17 people right now that are said that they're interested in going, and a possibility of 3 more from the class. But we need to have 35 on the bus to make it worthwhile.
Okay.
So we're about halfway there.
Okay.
I think Barry signed her and me up.
She did.
Okay, good deal. I need to get you some money then.
Well, we're waiting on.
Yeah.
If we get more people, it can be lesser price. I'm hoping
Good.
that we can
I
do that.
will
It'll
say,
be $70 or $75.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say if you've never been to Huntsville, that is something that everybody ought to try to go to if you're interested in ham radio, whether you're a tech or Pat's interested in going, and Mike, you don't get any more experienced and knowledgeable than Pat, but he gets a lot out of it, obviously. So, I mean, it's for me, it's the perfect place if you're looking to buy some equipment. These days everything is so much online and everything else. That's one of the places where you can actually see and compare some of the equipment, whether it's new or that's usually a lot of people there selling used equipment. So you can compare that and get some good bargains there. So it's just I can't say enough that if you've been before, you know what I'm talking about. But if you've never been and you're saying, what's the big deal? It's a big deal for it to be as close to Memphis as it is. If you've been in the hobby and you've heard of Dayton, it's maybe not quite as big as Dayton, but Dayton's not going to happen this year, but Huntsville is. So it's definitely
Uh,
something.
the- If somebody is interested, they need to send me an email to wa4ovo@gmail.com with the subject line Huntsville bus trip and name, email address, and cell phone number. And I'll have you on the list to get information. We will leave Germantown Baptist Church at 6:30 in the morning. Getting down to the Von Braun Center probably about 9:45. We will have tickets at the bus. We will go, the bus will back up to the loading dock. We will give you a ticket and your button. Then you need to fill out the ticket information to put it in the barrel for the drawings. Make sure you get that done. The fee will include the ticket to the Ham Fest, 2 Danvers breakfast biscuits of bacon or ham, water, soda, cookies, crackers, and some fruit that we'll have on the way down during the day. And on the way back during the day, you can come back and put gear on the bus to keep from having to carry it around. And you can also come back and sit in a nice, comfortable seat to rest your weary feet. They do have some chairs for people, but those chairs fill up pretty quick. You can come back also and get water or a drink and save the $2.50 or $3 that they charge you at the convention center, at the Von Braun Center.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I've driven and I've been on the bus, and if you're thinking it's not that far of a drive, you drive, you leave early in the morning, you drive, you walk around all day. That drive back is a long drive.
It's 200 miles to Huntsville.
Yeah. But I can show you a bunch of pictures of a lot of people asleep on last 3 or 4 years on trip back, and they were glad they were on the bus rather than driving. I'll guarantee you that. So, all right.
What time is the bus going to leave?
6:30 in the morning.
What, 6:30?
6:30.
Yes.
Which that's not, that's a good time. And like I said, it puts you there. We plan it where we put you there right at the opening of the Ham Fest.
Well, it's past the opening, but not too far past.
Yeah.
I think it opens at 9. So,
but I think usually, I said in the opening because usually a lot of the we try to make it work, because that's the other thing, and we'll try to kind of keep an eye out on that, and I'll try to post it somewhere. Not only is it vendors and stuff, but there's always some usually good seminars of some very interesting topics, and you can do that too. So, okay. All right, thank you, Joe. Anybody have anything else?
What about field day? Any talk about field day?
Yes. Joe may not even know this. I got a call this afternoon from Fred
Miller.
Fred Miller.
Joe knows everything.
Well, dadgummit. All right. He's the one that's been one of our main contacts for doing stuff in Germantown. And he did say, and he knows for a fact that we're not going to be able to do it where we've done it before because of the horse shows. They're saying, if they're able to do it, they're definitely going to be busy, this summer. But he's thinking, and he's supposed to find out. He called me in the middle of the afternoon, and he said he was supposed to find out today or tomorrow if we can use the park behind the Germantown City Hall. So I think it's what they call the municipal park. It's kind of there between GPAC and the City Hall and the library and all that. I've obviously passed by there, but he he told me, and I wasn't able to get by there today to check it out before tonight, but looking at a satellite view of it, it's got some open spaces and some trees and,
Is that by the tennis court or the volleyball courts?
I don't know I don't know.
It's south of the tennis courts. There's a restroom there also. There's a pavilion in that park. It's where the fireworks, 4th of July fireworks is. I'm not sure what portion he's thinking of, but I would think it's probably the portion that's closer to City Hall and closer to Germantown Road.
There's a gazebo there if it's might be able to put some stuff in there if they'll let it to have access to it. And the library isn't too far either.
Yeah. Well, I said the main thing is it's got, we got access to some restrooms. The nice thing about where we've done it before is we got access to that kitchen, and obviously we're not going to have something like that, but the good news is, and Jelly's helping him too, and Jelly's always anything in Germantown, Jelly's the connection there. So yes, things are in the works for field day. So it's it's pending what we can do, but because I asked Fred, I said, what's your talking to Germantown, what's your feelings of, how open they're going to be to something like this? And he said, because it's outside, he thinks it's going to work.
I feel sure Jelly's checked to make sure it would work too.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, it's like everything else this year. We got to plan for it. And if we got to it's easier to cancel it once you plan for it than it is to at the last minute plan it. So, we've always, the last year or two, we've scrambled for a place, and it sounds like this one should work. So thanks, Sam. Yeah, we are making progress on field day.
There are trees there to string some wires up in the trees.
Yeah. Yep.
You can put me down as one of the CW operators too.
Do you have any references of your abilities there, Pat? Or I mean, we can't just take anybody for CW now.
I know it.
Hey, Steve, I just want to know one thing. Are those horses going to be wearing masks?
Yeah. I don't know. All right. Okay.
What day was the field day now?
26th and 27th of June.
Yeah, it's late June.
I think it's the last rainy
No,
weekend
it's
in
the fourth
June.
weekend in June.
Yeah.
Stormy weather.
Yeah. All right. Well, good deal. Good deal. Anybody else have anything else?
Hey, Steve, I didn't remember one thing I meant to mention, and there'd been some complaints and stuff about the 8.2 repeater timing out on you in a shorter than 3-minute time, which is what the controller is set for. Well, I found out what the problem was. The repeaters are programmed, the repeater itself is programmed for 2 minutes. And if you don't let the whole thing drop, then that timer will not reset. We've been letting just the kerchunk happen, and that will reset the controller, but it will not reset the repeater. So I didn't want to turn that timer off, so I extended the timer on the repeater to 4 minutes. Just in case something happens to the controller and holds it on, I want the repeater to shut off. So it's still active, but occasionally let the whole thing drop. We're all guilty of it, and it never dawned on me that was both of them were active, but they are, and I want them to be active also, just for safety's sake. So just wanted to FYI and let everybody know that it has been programmed for 4 minutes now. I think I've had it drop out on me. I think Bob has had it drop out on him. And, it just, I couldn't figure out why for a while. There's no warning. It just stops. And if it's the controller timing out, then it will let you know. There is a warning. It says repeater timeout. And I think it says something when it comes back. I'm not sure. But anyway, just FYI to everyone, that hopefully won't happen again.
Yeah, last time I called the net, I thought I broke it.
Yeah. And then he was talking to me about it and it timed out on me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's timed out on Art and Barry also, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Art, it timed out on a number of times.
Yeah. But and it's because the whole repeater hasn't dropped. Everybody's letting the kerchunk go and they continue on, but the repeater never stopped. So the timer's continuing to go. So anyway, just good piece of information.
Okay.
That's it. I promise.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else before we get into the program? All right. And I should have asked before, who's Ian or you or Ray's doing it tonight?
I've got it tonight.
You got it. Okay.
So if we're ready to start, thanks everybody for taking the time to join us. One last little reminder for our secretary, make sure your call sign is in your name if you've got one. And welcome to all the new folks that we've got turning out here. But tonight we've got a video on, most people have probably heard the name. It's Dave Kassler. I think he says Kassler. It's KE0OG. He has a lot of videos on YouTube. This is from his amateur extra course. It's a little technical, but it shouldn't be anything too crazy for everybody to follow along with, even if you're still really new. But we're starting with VHF, UHF, and microwave propagation. And then we'll take a break for discussion and questions and see how much time we have. And if there's time, then he also has a video on HF propagation. Give me just a second to get this set up.
All right. You should be able to share. And Pat, if you got any questions, just don't ask me.
Okay.
Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to start it. All right.
I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and I am your guide through the ARRL, Extra Class License Manual for Ham Radio, 12th edition, valid from the 1st of July in 2020 through the 30th of June in 2024. Today we're going to talk about section 10.4 on VHF and UHF and microwave propagation. Some very interesting things. It works quite differently from the way HF propagates. So let's dive in. We'll touch on the radio horizon, multipath, tropospheric propagation, usually just called tropo, transequatorial propagation, auroral propagation, meteor scatter communications, and Earth-Moon-Earth propagation, most commonly just called moon bounce. I should point out that when we're talking propagation in these frequency ranges, we're talking of things any ham can do, including the ham with a tech license. While it's true that most hams use only FM on VHF and above, all other modes are available too, including CW, AM, single sideband, digital, and strange ones you may never have heard of. By convention, all modes other than FM on VHF on up are collectively called weak signal modes. Does that mean the signals are always weak? No, but often they are. You're familiar with VHF FM. It seems the station you're listening to has a strong signal or doesn't have a signal at all. That's FM for you. But there's a whole world of opportunities waiting for you to communicate with hams even thousands of miles away using VHF and above. How those so-called weak signals propagate is what this section is all about. Let me just mention something else. Nearly all VHF and above FM work is done using vertically polarized antennas. And conversely, nearly all weak signal work, which means everything other than FM, is done using horizontally polarized antennas. Again, it's just convention. We've talked in previous videos about antenna takeoff angle. We've talked about things like ground wave and sky wave. Here we introduce a term called space wave. That's when two antennas can see each other and communicate directly. To do this, we really don't want our antenna to send our energy up toward an unresponsive ionosphere, but rather we want to send our signals as horizontally as we can. In this picture, we see that the taller the antenna, and I'm talking many wavelengths here, the more horizontal the elevation pattern is. A lower antenna tends to send a signal up because of interaction with the local ground. That's fine on HF, but at VHF we'd be firing right over the heads of the stations we want to communicate with. So, height helps lower the takeoff angle, shown for each case as the blue line. Now, when we're talking space wave, we're talking so-called line of sight. The two antennas need to see each other. The first topic we run into is something called the radio horizon. Let's walk through figure 10-7. When you're standing on level ground, about the farthest away you can see is 3 or 4 miles. If, however, you climb a tree, you can see for many more miles. That's because your line of sight increases with height. Here we have an antenna. The visual horizon is where a direct line of sight meets the horizon. But radio waves are not visible light, and because of the lower frequencies, get bent a bit by the atmosphere. So, and here's the conceptual leap, the radio horizon is how far a radio wave can see from the top of the tower, which will be about 15% beyond the visual line of sight. So, if you're on a tower and you can see 100 miles, your VHF radio can actually see about 115 miles. I know this sounds strange. It was discovered when scientists and engineers were working with the first radar systems and found they could see things slightly over the horizon. That's because the signals are bent a bit by the lowest layer of the atmosphere, the troposphere. Figure 10-8 shows this. For those of you into these things, note that the scale is logarithmic both on the x-axis and on the y-axis. We call a graph like this log-log. It has the advantage of showing certain nonlinear relationships as straight lines. Just to show how this chart works, let's look at the right-hand side of the screen, which is a blow-up of figure 10-7. If our antenna height is 20 feet, then the visual horizon, shown by the dashed lines, is a tad over 5 miles. The radio horizon, shown by the solid line, is a tad over 6 miles. Back on the left side, note that the scale goes up to 20,000 feet. That would be a pretty tall tower, about 3 3/4 miles high. No, we can't do towers like that, but we can use tall buildings, hills, and mountains to get us that high. That's why repeaters are often located atop hills, so that they can cover wider areas. Let's look at figure 10-9. Here we see two towers of different heights. In this case, the heights are about equal. The transmitter tower has a line of sight of distance d to here, but the receiver has a line of sight of distance d1 to here. So a signal from the transmitter to the receiver covers the distance d plus d1, thus extending the range. If the receiver tower were lower, d1 would be smaller, and vice versa. So, as in so many other antenna cases, height matters. But matters are seldom so simple. RF is reflected and bounced around and may end up arriving at the destination from several different directions. That might seem good at first glance, but because each path has a different distance, the waves can be in phase or out of phase at the antenna. In other words, they can add or they can cancel. And note that in this case, with a mobile transmitting station moving along the highway, the reflection paths are changing constantly. This means the receiving station might hear rapid fading cycles. On FM, we call this picket fencing. Of course, I must pause to reflect on the term station. The term comes from stationary, meaning not moving. So the term mobile station does seem like an oxymoron, doesn't it? A better term might be a mobile installation, but the jargon most certainly is mobile station. So there you are. The book mentions in passing that multipath can play havoc with data transmissions. Let's look at how this is so. On this diagram, not found in the book, we have a transmitter 100 kilometers away from a receiver, or about 60 miles. The station is transmitting data at the rate of 10,000 symbols per second. That's not really all that fast when you consider that if each symbol is a single bit, that's only 10 kilobits per second. If that were an internet connection, that's slower than dial-up. Anyway, each symbol takes 100 microseconds. But if we show an entirely probable second path that hits a reflection point, say a granite cliff, and we have plenty of those around here in southwestern Colorado, the total path length is 130 kilometers. Will that matter? The power in the second path takes exactly 100 microseconds longer to get to the receiver. So we are looking at the symbols received via the direct ray and superimpose on that the symbols received from the reflected ray and find that at any given time we're receiving two different symbols at the same time. This is called inter-symbol interference. This is the major challenge that the book refers to. And yes, it is a challenge. One way to deal with this is to focus the antennas away from the reflection point while keeping each other in the antenna's beam width. This can help a bit. What can help even more are communications protocols designed to withstand inter-symbol interference. We generally consider VHF and above communications to be mostly via the space wave, meaning a line of sight, but there are a number of propagation modes that can, from time to time, make things much more interesting. Let's look at a few. The first is the troposphere. This is the lowest layer of the atmosphere and is the layer in which nearly all weather occurs. Yes, it only extends up about 12 kilometers or about 40,000 feet in temperate latitudes. Yep, the entire world's weather takes place here by and large, but some interesting propagation can take place entirely in the troposphere. You think it would be hard to ionize the troposphere, and you're correct. But with different weather conditions, we see sharp boundaries between high and low pressure and temperature, and the refractive index of air depends weakly on the pressure and temperature. So if the various weather fronts line up just so, the slight bending we get in the radio waves can cause them to follow these so-called ducts to some distant point. Note this has nothing to do with the ionosphere, just variable refractive indices in the troposphere. I recall with clarity an incident in 1976 when I was in the Air Force in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is right on the Gulf Coast where the weather seems to be perpetually stormy. One evening I was with a fellow ham standing on the Biloxi Pier talking with someone in Tampa, Florida, about 425 miles away, using a simple 2-meter 5-watt handheld with a rubber duck antenna. As a new ham, I was quite blown away. But the fellow I was with had done this before. Although it was unusual, it was certainly not unexpected. We had quite a chat with the Florida ham before the duct faded away. There are occasionally special propagation openings via the E layer of the ionosphere, called, appropriately enough, sporadic E. Sometimes these events last only minutes, sometimes substantially longer. In the United States, we see them in the mid-latitudes near the summer solstice, with sometimes a weaker season near the winter solstice. There's a column in QST called The World Above 50 Megahertz, and this column often has maps showing the results of sporadic E openings. Now, here's another form of propagation that does use the ionosphere, even though the exact method is still somewhat of a mystery. It's called transequatorial propagation, and by transequatorial, I mean transiting the magnetic equator, not the geographic equator. Figure 10-10 from the book shows some examples of this. Note that by and large, the two stations involved in any given path are approximately the same distance from the magnetic equator and perpendicular to it. Path lengths tend to be about 5,000 miles between stations. And at times, transequatorial works on HF as well. The aurora, or northern lights, or for that matter, southern lights, occur in high latitudes. You can see in this graphic from DX Atlas that they occur kind of in circles around the polar regions. The aurora are regions of the ionosphere that are so ionized that they emit visible light. The effect can be beautiful. Let's look at how the aurora happen. This NASA diagram shows that the Earth's magnetic field acts to shield us from the harmful elements of the solar wind. There are two places, though, where this radiation can get to Earth, and that is to follow the magnetic field lines either to the North Magnetic Pole or the South Magnetic Pole. When the sun emits particularly large amounts of material, it can get ducted into these areas, strike the ionosphere, and ionize it so much that it actually glows with visible light. That's all well and good, but how do we use it for ham radio? Well, all that highly ionized aurora is just tailor-made to reflect radio waves. As shown in figure 10-13 from the northern latitudes, it's possible to turn your VHF, UHF, or microwave antenna to point at the aurora and work other stations doing the same. Note that the aurora are constantly shifting, so your propagation results will too. And because aurora are a result of geomagnetic storms, it's possible to have a day or so's warning that strong aurora will likely occur. We've all seen the occasional meteor trace across the sky. They're quite breathtaking and seem rather rare. But these meteors are just the big ones. The Earth is actually being bombarded by tons of space dust every day. These burn up in the ionospheric E layer and are not even noticed by us Earthlings. But just because we don't see them as giant streaks doesn't mean they aren't there. When they hit the E layer, they burn up and leave behind a trail of ionized gas. Even the smallest dust mote leaves something behind. It is possible to bounce radio waves off these trails. The way to exploit this, usually called meteor burst communications, is to constantly ping to see if a distant receiving station can hear. When the path opens, information is exchanged rapidly in a burst, given that the ionized trail dissipates rather quickly. The transient meteor paths can be exploited in several ways. The book mentions single sideband, though this requires a more substantial meteor. High-speed CW has been used to get info through quickly, although frankly, CW is not the most efficient way to encode information by a long shot. A popular software suite that exploits this digitally comes from Nobel Prize winner Joe Taylor, K1JT, a Princeton physics professor. Called FSK 411, it's a mode that's part of the original WSJT software and can be found online. This isn't something you can use your FM mobile rig for, though. You need a VHF or UHF rig that can do weak signal modes, such as single sideband and digital modes. By the way, there are a number of predictable meteor shower events. Each is associated with a comet that has broken up into myriad tiny pieces. The Earth travels through these old comet trails and results in as many as dozens of strong meteors in an evening. Let's see. What else can we bounce signals off? How about the moon? It just sits there as a passive reflector, right? Well, not quite. Let's look at some issues in Earth-Moon-Earth communications. Oh yes, it can be done, but it takes some serious preparation. Here is the first problem. If you go out and look at the full moon, hold up your thumb and blot out the moon. Although the moon looms large in our psyche, it's really only about a ½ degree wide when viewed from the Earth. So let's take even a very good antenna and direct it at the moon. Lots of the signal just blows on by. Only a small fraction of it actually hits the moon. This is where carefully calibrated, exceptionally narrow beam antennas aimed square at the moon and transmitting with considerable power really help. Now, here's the next problem. The moon is vast and anything but flat. Your signal is reflected in all directions as shown by the yellow cloud. To receive anything, enough of these reflections have to come back to your antenna to make any difference. You can see instantly that multipath must be a huge problem. And such a faint signal, the path loss is well over 250 dB at 144 megahertz. That means if 1,000 watts were to get to an isotropic radiator, you would be lucky to receive minus 190 dBm back. Part of this can be mitigated both on the sending and receiving end by having a very high gain, highly directional antenna. In addition, a quiet, sensitive receiver with a very low noise figure will be most helpful. Now, I mentioned multipath, but the moon always has the same face pointing at Earth, so the multipath can be adjusted for, right? Well, no. Take a look at this beautiful NASA time-lapse video. Yes, the same face always appears to Earth, but the moon rocks back and forth quite a bit in multiple directions. This rocking motion, called libration, causes the multipath to go wild. Also, the moon is not always at the same distance from the Earth, and you can see the moon grow larger and smaller with time. The reflected signal is about 2 dB larger when the moon is closer. So, with all this trouble, can EME communications actually take place? The answer is yes, if you work hard at it. Joe Taylor mentioned just a couple minutes ago, originally developed JT65 as a mode for moon bounce. Yes, it's become very popular on HF, but its roots come from the moon. Well, that's interesting, all of it, and makes for very good reading. So dig into the study material and then make sure that you can answer all of the questions that are listed in the back of the book, and make sure that you really understand why.
right. So that's the VHF UHF microwave portion. Did anybody have any questions or discussion?
Back in the days of analog television, you could listen to the frequency of Channel 2's television visual carrier and hear the meteor pings coming from all over the country where they've got Channel 2 television stations. Some of them are pretty good.
I did not know that.
In the early days, the US Navy sent video off the moon way back when.
Wow.
Well, they're licensed at some pretty good power too.
Yeah, they had no restrictions on power output for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got any other questions or examples or?
You ever watch Aurora signals? If you're listening to them on single sideband, they are really garbled. And also on CW, the CW signal sounds like a hissing sound more than a tone. That's how you can tell if you're hearing an Aurora signal. Used to work a lot of Aurora openings on 6 meters years ago.
And you point your antennas all the same direction, right, Pat? No matter if the guy's 100 miles south of you.
Point the antennas generally up north where the Aurora.
And you can be talking to Jackson, Mississippi, and be south of you, and they sound like ghost, kind of a raspy sound voice.
Right. Once you've heard it, you'll know what and understand what you're listening for. You'll always be able to identify an Aurora signal.
No audio. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm back online. Yeah, that was very interesting, but he just barely touched the surface on that. I've worked a lot of VHF through the years and all states on 6 meters. I've worked and confirmed 43 states on 2 meter sideband at CW.
Wow.
17 states on 432-100. So there's a lot more instruction that he could have done. He just barely touched the surface. The comments on meteor scatter were just, I mean, he just barely mentioned it. I've worked a lot of it through the years. And the aurora that he was just talking about, Pat was talking about, you can go to www.spaceweather.com. Very good for radio propagation. And it also shows an oval of the Earth. You can look at the North Pole or the South Pole to see what type of aurora activity is occurring. And if you watch the sunspots, as we have a solar flare from the spots, that will cause enhancement in the aurora field. And like you said, it's a buzzing, hissing sound. You can work it on voice on 6, but on 2 meter sideband or CW, you have to work it on CW. It'll you'll give a signal report of 5, whatever, let's say it's a 5.9 signal, it'll be 5.9A, and that would indicate you're making an aurora contact. So VHF propagation and the study thereof, I hope he just kind of quenched, or not necessarily quenched, but inspired you to get into it. You can do a whole lot with a 50, 75, or 100 watt radio and a 13B2 antenna. It's out there. It occurs. That's my comments. I'm Damon, WA4HFN. Thank you.
Thanks, Damon. I knew we had some people that had gotten pretty far into that and still made it back out of it to come talk to us. But yeah, there's just like almost any topic, there's a ton more information out there. Didn't want to go too far into it because we only have a certain amount of time each month. Yeah, thanks everybody for the comments and the discussion. It's definitely interesting, things you never really thought of before getting into a hobby like this, to think, well, you go from can I tune my radio on that and turn it into an antenna, and can I bounce a signal off of it? Two biggest questions I've heard in ham radio.
Had a situation a number of years ago on 6 meters where we had a space capsule coming in for landing out in the Atlantic Ocean. And as he was coming in over Texas, leaving an ionized trail there in the atmosphere, you could bounce a 6 meter signal off of that ionized trail. I worked a number of stations up in Virginia, and both of us had our antennas pointed to the southwest, and we were bouncing a signal or backscattering it off of that ionized trail and making contact off of it. That was kind of interesting.
Some people actually bounce them off commercial airliners somehow. I've never tried that one.
Wow. Huh. Hadn't thought about that, but yeah. Wow. All right. You said something, Ian, about another video. How long is that other one?
The other one is, I believe it is 17 minutes.
Well, what do you think? Maybe save that one for next time, or?
Yeah, we can save that one for another time. I'll get the links for these over to Mike so he can get them on the website for us, and the HF propagation video will be in there. It's also a good one. It doesn't go super in depth, but it's enough to be able to get you started. And if there's a situation that you're trying to apply to it, it gives you enough of the knowledge and the terminology to at least do some searching on your own to find a little more specifics.
Okay. Well, that's good. That is, that is another aspect of the hobby that, maybe a lot of people, maybe touched on, but, especially to hear some actual examples. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, the other night, 2 days ago, I think one of the guys at Rossville hollered at me, and the 443-200 Delta Club repeater at Memphis State was, not broadcasting just his ID once in a while, but we were listening to the same frequency on the other side of Little Rock, Arkansas, on UHF. Had a band opening. Listen to the locals talk about the weather and such.
That was Russellville, wasn't it? Rick, wasn't that Russellville?
Rick, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Well, the calls we copied we looked them up QRZ, and they were southwest towards Hot Springs direction from Little Rock. But who knows? It could have been a lot of them getting in there.
Yeah.
I think I heard that one as well.
Okay. All right. Well, anybody have anything else? Does anybody think of anything else they wanted to bring up or ask anything? Seriously, this is a good time to, anybody's got anything they want to ask or share. We are glad that we've got some new people on here. Everybody's welcome. So, Joe, you raising your hand, or you?
I've got
Park, go ahead and let Park speak.
Yeah. Well, I've got two questions. The second one has two parts to it, and I know these are probably stupid questions, but since I'm so new, earlier, Barry mentioned the repeater and that you need to let the repeater drop out. And so I don't know what that means. I ought to probably know what that means, but I don't really know what that means. I assume that just means don't transmit for a minute and let it reset. But that was one question. And the second question is, in that video that Dave mentioned, and he was talking about the meteor scatter, he mentioned using part of the suite, FSK 441, but in studying for the extra and reading about some of the digital modes, the one they test you on is the MSK 144. And so I assume they're very similar. And my second part to that question is, do the transceivers come, do you have to buy the transceivers with those digital capabilities built into it, or is that something you do through a computer?
So, well, I think we have plenty of we have plenty of experience here to get both of those answered. So the repeater question, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but letting it drop out just means usually this would be the net control making sure that this can happen is just stop transmitting long enough that the repeater will stop transmitting. That resets the timers on it, and then everything can resume. It's not a very long pause or anything. It's just probably a very short 2 beats after the courtesy tone. Does that sound accurate, Barry?
Yeah, like I say, we have two different situations there. The first one's the courtesy tone that you hear, which I call the kerchunk. And that's one timer right there. That's the controller that is controlling this thing. But also, you can use this repeater without a controller. And so it has its own timeout on it that you can set. And the reason I keep that timer on there is, for example, I think during field day about two years ago, we had a big storm come through the field day tents and all this stuff. And the next morning, it was a Sunday morning, I got word that the same kind of controller, as a matter of fact, but this is on the 440 repeater at University of Memphis. It was just on. It was just transmitting. No audio. You couldn't use it or anything, but it was just transmitting and would not time out, would not shut off. And that's probably because that timer was turned off. But it also had the controller on it, but the controller is what was holding it on. So, you know, that's kind of the reason I left it at a 4-minute timeout. And the difference in them, one of them is the courtesy tone. That's the controller. And in our instructions during the net, we just say, wait for the courtesy tone before you talk again. Well, technically, sometimes you need to let that the repeater itself drop out, and you'll hear it. You'll hear a squelch tail on it. It's usually very obvious. And once that drops out, then that timer has also been reset. But it's set at 4 minutes, so you can get away with it a little bit. But anyway, I hope that helps you out there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and Barry, the main reason for, a good example is, like I said, you said field day, but it's kind of what I think of as a stuck mic type situation.
That is correct.
We get that a lot on some of our events that we do. Somebody's got a handheld in their car and they're sitting on the mic or something. And, with the timing out, the whoever's blocking or hogging the repeater, it won't be more than what we got the timing set on.
That's correct. That's the controller should operate on that one. I was more afraid of something that like happened at University of Memphis, where we had that lightning strike out there, and it took out the controller and caused it was telling the repeater to transmit all the time.
Right.
And apparently that repeater was not set to time out. It should have shut it off completely, but no, it stayed on for 4 days until we could get there. So, and it survived.
Okay. And then Park, your other question, there was anybody else can answer his other question? I didn't even understand the question, so I know I can.
So
Yeah,
your other question was FSK and MFSK.
yeah. WSJT-X is a free program. It's got all the different modes on there.
It's got all of them.
Yeah, and that's what a bunch of us use. And he also reminded everybody about their go boxes and their battery charging up again, you know, since it's storm season.
Park, it's software that there's different software for each one of them.
And it's all pretty much, I believe, run off of a single sideband, isn't it?
Well, on digital mode, it's not.
Well,
digital
that's
mode.
how the computer
Yeah.
computer talks to a single sideband radio.
I'd
Right?
say gosh, I haven't been on it for a while lately, but you know, the program has got all the different modes on there, which are different, you know, for different functions. The moon bouncers used, you know, like he talked about in the video there towards the end, and JT65, and I mean, you know, satellite communication, they use one, and you know, we use one of 6 meters all the time for that. So you know, it's kind of one of those, he'll learn this stuff as he goes, you know. It just takes, hey, you never get it all, and you know, 20 years later you'll still be questioning yourself, what was that? Or that's why we like to take new hams to Huntsville Ham Fest, because you'll say, what's that? I don't know, but you need it, buy it, you know. Spend your money.
As somebody that went to Huntsville within the first couple of months of being licensed, you drown a little bit until you learn to swim through it. But it's fun doing it, especially being so new. It's kind of for a hobby that you really enjoy. It's kind of like going to a theme park, in a way.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, Armed Forces Communications is coming up May the 8th. There's nobody in Memphis doing it, I don't believe, but that is when ARRL will put out the frequencies that the military stations will be transmitting on, and hams will listen on those frequencies, and the military stations will give a frequency in the ham band that they're listening on. And so they call it it's called crossband to a certain extent.
There was a great article in the May QST about the Mars program, and it also on special events on, I don't remember what page it is talks about the armed forces, and they will release all of the frequencies and all of the stations that'll be participating after April the 19th. So you can get, there's normally 20 or 25 military stations that will be on the air, like the Pentagon and well, it's a bunch of different ships, museum ships. Fort Huachuca will be on. Naval Academy has been on in the past, so it's a great thing. I had to turn them down this year because we got kicked out of the Navy base, so we did not doing anything out there. So, but also, if you don't mind, put a plug in the first week of the month for the rest of the year. The Mars organizations will be having a exercise on the 5 megahertz channels. The 5, that's 60 meters. Those particular channels, ham radio is secondary users and the government is primary. So we will have government stations on there talking to hams. And part of our deal is we have to send a report in of the hams that we talk to. So if you're interested, that will happen the Sunday through Wednesday. It'll be Air Force Mars, and then Wednesday through Saturday it'll be Army Mars, and they'll be on channel 1 of the 60 meter, the 5 channels that we've got down there. That will be where the voice communications will be held, and then the others will be used for digital and other voice communications if necessary. So that's just something, if anybody's interested, especially some of you new hams, if you can get on that 60 meters, which is 5 megahertz, and it happens the first week of every month between now and the end of the year.
Okay.
And him that actually reminded me, there's a weekend event specifically for museum ships. That is June.
First Saturday in June, usually.
Yeah, the first Saturday in June. Thank you. And it looks like they say they have about 50 that are participating. It's a really interesting event. I'll also get the link to Mike so that he can put it on the website for us.
I had a very interesting experience. I was in Kittery, Maine for Ships on the Air and set up with the Port City Amateur Radio Club at the memorial for the Thrasher, which sank on a trial run out of the Portsmouth Naval Yard. And one of the contacts I made was a gentleman who knew 5 of the people that were on that ship. And another one of the contacts was a naval pilot coming back from the Mediterranean. They had been alerted that there was a search, and they loaded fuel so they could do a search over part of the Atlantic to see if they could find them. But that was 2 interesting contacts that I made while I was operating that Ships on the Air station from Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Yeah, that was interesting. All right. Anything else? I see a couple of people yawning, and I'm sure Richard's about out of wine, so time to wind it down. We want to remind everybody I am recording this, and I'll probably not until tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, I'll put it on our YouTube page. I do have checked that the other day. We've got a couple of people that have subscribed to it, so I know that some people have seen that. Just if you search Delta Club, you're going to get Delta Airlines. So do Delta Amateur Radio, looking in YouTube, and you should find it that way. I said, main thing right now is going to be the meetings. I've put a few other things on there that I found in some of my videos, and I'm kind of reorganizing some of my files on my personal computer. And if I come across some more things, I'll add anything in there that I find. We don't have a whole lot of views, so if we've got to have somebody bite somebody's finger or something to get over 1 million views, we'll see what we can do about that. So, but
what about the plug for next month's meeting?
I'm sorry?
What about the plug for next month's meeting?
Next month's meeting.
Yeah. So our presentation for the May meeting is going to be Bob Heil from Heil Audio. I say from the founder of Heil Audio. He's going to give us a presentation on configuring and optimizing your audio for amateur radio.
That ought to be good. That ought to be good. Okay. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Anything else? All right. Well, I do appreciate it. And, people are asking when we're going to get together, and it will be as soon as possible, but, definitely don't see it next month. And we'll month by month, we'll keep evaluating it and see where we stand on that. But, you know, it'll be, well, nothing else. I won't be able to be there, but Junk in the Trunk, May 1st, that'd be a great time to get together. Try to make that if you can. All right. Don't forget to clean up around your areas and push your chairs under the tables. All right. See you next month. Thanks.
Thank you.
7-3.
73.